whispered to the ceiling, like the dark could understand. Every quiet thought I carried fell like dust between my hands, and every hallway felt much longer when nobody spoke my name. I was learning how to vanish before the morning ever came. Bare feet on a cold apartment floor, rain against the window frame. Tiny shadows crossed the mirror, but none of them looked the same. I wore silence like a sweater, pulled too tightly at the seams, held my breath around the people who walked loudly through my dreams. And maybe I was there beside them, maybe I was easy to miss, a faded photograph still hanging without a single fingerprint. Oh, I kept my heart behind my ribs like something dangerous, afraid that if the world looked closer it would find nothing to love. Before the morning knew my name, I drifted like invisible rain through crowded rooms and sleepless nights, a ghost beneath the city lights. I was searching for a softer place to rest the fear upon my face. Before the dawn could pull me through, I did not know what I would lose, or who I was becoming too. Coffee cups beside the piano, songs unfinished in the dark. Every melody I started sounded like a breaking heart, and all the words I never spoke live like storms beneath my skin. I kept building quiet prisons no one noticed I was in. Sometimes I would watch the sunrise, paint the rooftops gold and blue, wonder how the light kept shining when I could not break through. But somewhere underneath the ache, a small flame still survived. Even lonely hearts keep beating, even shadows stay alive. Before the morning knew my name, I drifted like invisible rain through crowded rooms and sleepless nights, a ghost beneath the city lights. I was reaching for a hand to hold, something steady, something warm, trying not to disappear inside another silent storm. Before the world could notice me, I was learning how to breathe. Maybe the sky was listening every time I closed my eyes. Maybe all the broken pieces were preparing me to rise. And though I felt so small back then, like smoke dissolving in the air, there was still a pulse inside my chest, quietly waiting there. Before the morning knew my name, I carried all my hidden pain, but somewhere in the fading blue, a fragile kind of hope broke through. And though the dawn arrived so slow, it found a heart still glowing low, a trembling light the dark could not erase. Even before the world could say my name, I was already finding my place. things I never say. A quiet little world inside me that nobody ever stays. I smile when people ask me questions, like I've mastered being fine. Careful not to let the trembling slip between the cracks of light. I learned early how to soften every ache beneath my skin. Turn the storms into small whispers, keep the chaos caged within. And every night when all grows still, I hear the truth I couldn't show. 1,000 feelings folding inward, like winter underneath the snow. I became so good at silence, even my tears learned how to hide. But somewhere underneath the stillness, a fragile heart survives. In the quiet place inside my chest, there are words I never let rest. Tiny echoes calling through the dark, like fading lights, like hidden sparks. I keep my sadness dressed in calm, hold every break in things so soft. No one sees the waves beneath the peaceful surface covering me. In the quiet place inside my chest, I am louder than I confess. Some nights the mirror feels familiar, some nights I barely know my face. Like I disappeared so slowly, no one noticed the empty space. I carry conversations softly, long after they are gone, replaying every little moment, wondering where I went wrong. And sometimes love feels like a language I was never taught to speak, so I answer with half smiles and secrets buried deep. Oh, but every hidden sorrow still leaves shadows in the light. Even hearts that stay unspoken need somebody to find them sometimes. In the quiet place inside my chest, there are fears I never addressed. Little rivers running silently beneath the person they all see. I wear composure like white lace, delicate enough to break, still pretending I'm untouched while holding far too much. In the quiet place inside my chest, I'm trying to learn to rest. Maybe silence was my shelter, maybe silence was my cage. Maybe all the love I buried still remembers how to ache. And if somebody stayed long enough to hear the trembling in my breath, would they still reach out and hold me if they knew the mess I kept? In the quiet place inside my chest, the lonely parts still do their best to keep believing warmth exists beyond these carefully guarded walls. And though my voice can sound so calm, there's a storm beneath it all, a hopeful light still glowing faint, refusing to grow cold again. In the quiet place inside my chest, I think I'm finally ready to be less afraid of tenderness. There's a room beneath the noise, and tonight I left the door a little more open than before. moon ashamed of light, hiding all the broken pieces far beyond another night. But pain is strange and quiet ways of teaching hearts to grow, and some wounds learn how to glow. There's an old crack in my memory, still humming underneath my skin, like a song the rain remembers long after storms have ended. I carried sorrow like an ocean, heavy in my trembling hands, certain I would drown forever inside things I couldn't understand. But somewhere in the darkest hours, when no one else could see, the ache became a lantern burning softly inside me. Oh, every tear I tried to bury left silver in my soul, and every fragile part of me was shaping me to hold. Some wounds learn how to glow like embers underneath the snow, turning pain into golden light. Quiet stars inside the night, what once felt sharp enough to break now leaves warmth in its wake, and every scar I feared would show became the proof I still could grow. Some wounds learn how to glow. I remember all the silence after promises collapsed, how the mirror looked so empty when I thought I'd never heal from that. But time moves gently through the body like sunlight through old lace, softening the hardest memories without erasing what they changed. And now I touch those tender places with kinder hands than before, because survival taught my spirit what forgiveness is for. The heart is not a failure for breaking under weight. Sometimes the deepest fractures let the light illuminate. Some wounds learn how to glow like rivers after winter cold, turning grief into softer eyes, into truth that never hides. What once felt far too much to bear now blooms like wildflowers there, and every shattered part I know became a place where love could grow. Some wounds learn how to glow. Maybe healing isn't spotless, maybe beauty keeps the cracks, maybe strength is simply learning how to carry softness back. And maybe all the nights I cried were not wasted after all, because the girl who feared the dark now shines quietly through it all. Learn how to glow. Some wounds learn how to glow brighter than the pain below, turning lonely into grace, turning sorrow into space for gentler mornings untouched by life. I am illuminated by it. I carry the rain too long inside my tired hands. Like if I held the sorrow carefully, it might finally understand me. There were years of spoken whispers, afraid the walls would hear every hidden kind of heartbreak, every uncried tear. I learned how to smile politely while the storm stayed in my chest, telling everyone I'm okay while quietly losing rest. And every memory kept dripping from places I could not repair, like cold water through the ceiling, slowly gathering everywhere. Oh, I thought sadness was something I simply had to keep, like if I let it leave my body, I might lose what made me me. I carried the rain too long, through every season passing on, held every cloud inside my skin, let the darkness settle in. I wore heartbreak like a coat, heavy every word I spoke, and even when the sky turned blue, I still believe the storm was true. Oh, I carried the rain too long, long after the thunder was gone. Sometimes I still hear old echoes inside ordinary nights, the sound of all the lonely hours, trying hard not to cry. I became careful with my laughter, like joy was temporary light. Certain happiness would leave me if I held it too tight. And all the love I never asked for, all the warmth I pushed away, stayed waiting at the edges while I disappeared into the gray. Oh, the pain can become a habit when you wear it for so long. You forget your heart was built for spring, not only surviving storms. I carried the rain too long, built my home where sadness belonged, turned every silence into stone, convinced I had to hurt alone. But somewhere underneath the flood, a quieter hope was waking up, soft as dawn through broken blinds, soft enough to change my mind. Maybe I carried the rain too long. Maybe it's time to let it run off. What if healing doesn't happen loudly? What if peace arrives like light, slowly warming every frozen corner, one small breath at a time? Maybe I was never meant to drown inside the blue. Maybe the sky was only teaching me how precious sunlight feels breaking through. I carried the rain too long, but I don't want to anymore. I'm opening the windows now, letting fresh air through the door. And though the clouds still visit me, they no longer own my soul, because even wounded hearts can learn they were never made for endless cold. Oh, I too long. Now I'm learning how to move on. The storm is finally leaving, and for the first time in years I can hear myself breathing. For a long time I kept every window closed, afraid the world would see how dark it had become inside me. But slowly something gentle started changing. Morning slipped between the curtains, like it knew my name somehow. Soft gold falling on the silence that I used to hide behind. I stood still beside the mirror, watching dust turn into stars. For the first time in forever, the room did not feel so hard. And all the hurt I carried quietly still lingered in the air, but it no longer filled the whole sky. There was breathing space somewhere. Where the light could finally go. I still carry old reminders scattered underneath my skin, but they no longer feel like anchors pulling me beneath again. Now the silence sounds much kinder. Now the nights don't last as long, and even loneliness feels softer when hope begins returning home. There are colors in the distance I forgot the world could hold. Tiny hints of brighter mornings inside the fading gray and smoke. Oh, I used to think my sadness would outlive every dream, but hearts can slowly rediscover what tenderness still means. Where the light could finally reach, the ache inside me started healing. Every tear I used to hide turned silver underneath the sky, and all the walls around my chest began loosening their grip, as if my soul had waited years for one small moment just like this. Oh, I found a quiet kind of hope, where the light could finally glow. Maybe I was never broken, only buried underneath the rain. Maybe love was always waiting patiently beyond the pain. And though the dark still visits sometimes, it no longer feels the same, because now I know the smallest light can teach the night to change. Where the light could finally reach, I felt my frightened heart start breathing. Not all at once, not suddenly, the air began to change, like winter slowly loosening, without a sound, without a warning. And somehow the world felt softer around you. The mornings lost their heaviness, coffee tasted sweeter somehow. Even silence felt less lonely when you were sitting near me quietly. Streetlights blurred like watercolor, rain no longer felt so cold. Every little thing around me carried hints of gold. You never try to fix my sadness, never force the dark away. You just stayed beside my trembling until the fear began to fade. Oh, kindness moves so gently, you almost miss it when it starts. But little by little, it rewrites the shape of broken hearts. The world felt softer around you, like sharp edges finally smooth, like every aching part of me could breathe a little easier. And even crowded nights grew calm when your voice cut through the noise. You turned ordinary moments into places I could rest. Oh, I didn't know love could feel like this, like warmth returning slowly to my chest. I used to rush through every feeling, afraid to let myself be known. But your eyes held so much patience that I stopped hiding quite so much. Now the city glows differently, neon reflections on wet streets feel less like lonely echoes, more like songs surrounding me. And every time you say my name, it lands softly in the air, like you mean it carefully, like I'm something worth holding there. Or maybe healing sometimes happens inside the smallest things, a gentle hand, an open heart, the safety kindness brings. The world felt softer around you, like storm clouds finally moved, like my tired soul could finally stop bracing for another wound. And every shadow lost its shape, every silence changed its sound. You made this fragile life of mine feel steadier somehow. Oh, I didn't know tenderness could do what years of surviving never could. You never asked me to be fearless, never needed me to shine. You simply loved me through the quiet until I slowly came alive. And maybe that's what changed me most, not grand promises or fire, but the way your gentle presence made the world feel kind. The world feels softer around you, even now when nights turn blue. There's a calmness in my heartbeat that wasn't there before you. And though I still carry old scars, they don't ache the way they used to, because your warmth taught every wounded part that love can feel peaceful too. Oh, somewhere between your hands and mine, the whole world softened. everything. So smaller, trying not to take up space, trying not to become too much for anyone. But hearts were never made to live unseen forever. I used to quiet every feeling before it ever reached the air. Learned to shrink beside the silence, like disappearing meant I cared. I wore softness like an apology, held my breath in crowded rooms, certain if I stayed unnoticed I could somehow avoid the wounds. And every dream I kept abandoned still knocked gently at my chest, like tiny birds against a window, begging not to be forgotten yet. Oh, I confused being invisible with finally being safe. But loneliness grows louder when you erase yourself each day. I was never meant to disappear, never meant to live consumed by fear. I am more than fading quietly, more than surviving silently. And every part I hid away still deserved the light of day. A soul this full was never made to vanish in the shadow's shade. Oh, I was never meant to disappear. I was always meant to be here. There were mirrors I avoided because I could not meet my eyes, too afraid of seeing someone who had slowly left herself behind. But now I hear my own voice clear, like rain finally turning into rivers. And every fragile thing inside me feels a little less like something to deliver. I am learning softness isn't weakness, tears are not a thing to hide. And taking up emotional space does not mean I'm hard to love tonight. Oh, the heart was never asking to become somebody else, it only wanted permission to exist as itself. Was never meant to disappear, never meant to spend these years dimming every light inside me just to keep the peace around me. Now every scar I carry speaks of all the ways I stayed alive, and every quiet part of me still deserves to be recognized. Oh, I was never meant to disappear. I was always meant to survive here. Maybe I spent too long believing love required me to fade, but real love does not ask a soul to slowly break itself away. And now the girl who feared being seen is standing softly in the open air, not louder, not harder, just no longer pretending she isn't there. I was never meant to disappear, not beneath the weight of all these years. I was made for morning light, for tenderness, for being alive. And though my voice still shakes sometimes, it finally sounds like mine. No longer never meant to disappear. I was always meant to remain. I am still here, still breathing, still becoming. It's been so long, trying to outrun the darker parts of me. As if healing meant becoming spotless, as if love only belonged to the beautiful pieces. But even my shadows needed comfort too. There are corners of my memory still carrying winter in their bones. Places I avoided touching, like abandoned rooms inside my soul. I call myself too sensitive, too broken to be held with tears. So I buried every fragile thing, and the lust and trembling there, and every fear I tried denying only learned to ache more deeply, like lonely children in the silence, still waiting patiently for me. Or maybe pain does not grow softer when we push it far away. Maybe healing starts the moment we stop turning from the ache. Even my shadows needed comfort, even my scars deserved a hand. All the trembling parts inside me were only asking to be understood. I used to think love meant perfection, a heart untouched by darker things. But now I know the soul grows kinder when it learns to hold everything. Oh, even my shadows needed warmth, not punishment for being born. I still hear old voices telling me to stay ashamed, as if sadness made me smaller, as if softness was to blame. But now I sit beside my silence without trying to escape, listening gently to the sorrow like rain against a window pane. And every broken piece I carry feels a little less alone, now that I no longer force myself to heal by turning cold. Oh, the heart was never meant to survive through self-denial. Even wounded souls need tenderness to slowly reconcile. Even my shadows needed comfort, even the darkness in my chest. Every hidden wound I carry still deserve compassion and rest. I used to fear my imperfections, like they'd make the whole world leave. But love begins the moment we stop withholding it from ourselves quietly. Oh, even my shadows needed light, soft enough to stay through the night. So now I hold my younger sorrow like something sacred. Maybe beauty isn't spotless, maybe grace is learning this. The soul becomes more human when it finally learns forgiveness. Even my shadows needed comfort, not hiding out another war. Every lonely part within me was worthy of tenderness before. And now when darkness visits softly, I no longer turn away. I leave the door a little open and let compassion stay. Oh, even my shadows needed love, and finally I gave them some. I am learning, not every shadow was meant to disappear. Some were only waiting to be held gently. For a while, I believe the storm will last forever. Like sadness had rewritten the whole sky, like nothing gentle could survive it. But one morning, the rain stopped falling and the sky stayed. I thought the silence would swallow every part of me. Broken glass across my heartbeat, heavy air, I couldn't breathe. I watched old dreams collapse like buildings underneath the winter flood, certain I would never heal enough to recognize myself again. And every hour felt endless, every memory burned blue, like the storm had carved its name into everything I knew. Oh, but even the darkest weather eventually moves on, and sometimes healing starts quietly after surviving for too long. The sky stayed after the storm, soft light touching everything warm. And though the earth still carried rain, the world began to breathe again. I stood beneath the clearing blue, with trembling hands in something new. A fragile kind of peace I thought was gone, still waiting for me all along. Oh, the sky stayed after the storm. Now the mornings feel less distant, coffee warms my chest again. Little songs return uninvited through half-open apartment windows. I still carry traces of the thunder, little echoes in my veins, but they no longer pull me under. Every time I hear the rain, and maybe scars don't fully vanish, maybe they soften into light, proof the soul can keep surviving even after endless nights. Oh, I used to think surviving meant becoming cold somehow, but healing feels much softer, like fire where sorrow used to be. The sky stayed after the storm, wide enough to hold what's torn. And though the clouds still visit sometimes, they no longer steal the morning light. Now every breath feels more alive, every small hope feels worth the fight. And somewhere in the healing blue above, I finally learned the storm was never all there was. The rain moved on, but the sky remained, and so did I. I became so good at silence, even I forgot how much I carried, until you looked at me like you could hear something deeper beneath every unfinished sentence. Most people only saw the surface, a careful smile, a steady voice. They never noticed all the earthquakes hidden underneath the noise. I answered questions halfway honestly, left the hardest truths unsaid, built soft walls around my feelings, and quietly lived inside my head. But you listened differently somehow, like pauses had their own meaning too. Like every trembling breath between my words was speaking clearly to you. Oh, I never knew how badly I wanted to be understood, until you touched the hidden sorrow no one else ever could. You heard the heart I hid, the one beneath the quietness, the fragile pulse behind my ribs. I spent so many years protecting, and somehow you could read the ache inside the silence on my face. Without me asking, without a sound, you found the parts I'd buried down. Oh, you heard the heart I hid, and stay gentle with it. I used to fear emotional closeness, like love would ask too much of me. But your kindness never cornered me, it simply gave my soul room to breathe. Now every conversation lingers like warm light after rain. Even ordinary evenings feel softer when you say my name. And for the first time in forever, I don't feel invisible anymore, because you notice all the tiny things I thought no one could hear before. Oh, maybe love begins the moment someone sees beyond the disguise and holds the truth we try to hide with careful hands and patient eyes. You heard the heart I hid, the lonely child inside my chest, the quiet fear of being too much, the exhaustion of pretending less. And every hidden wound in me feels lighter when you understand, like all the pieces I concealed finally have somewhere safe to land. Oh, you heard the heart I hid, and suddenly I could breathe again. You never demanded explanations, never forced the darkness into light. never learned how to say. There was a time I thought strength sounded loud, like proving myself, like fighting every storm that touched me. But somewhere along the way, I learned another kind of power. I used to answer every heartbreak with trembling words and restless nights, trying to explain my sadness to people who would never listen twice. I carried every accusation like it belonged beneath my skin. Let every careless sentence become another war within. But exhaustion has a way of teaching what peace is truly worth. And slowly I stopped chasing voices that only made me hurt. Oh, not every wound requires defending, not every silence means defeat. Sometimes letting go softly is the strongest thing we speak. When silence became my strength, I stopped breaking for attention, stopped needing every heart around me to understand my pain. And in the stillness I discovered a calm, a kind of grace, where peace no longer felt like weakness and quiet did not mean erased. Oh, and silence became my strength. I finally heard myself again. Now the nights feel less demanding, the air moves easier through my lungs. I no longer fear empty spaces or conversations left undone. There's power in not reacting and choosing softness over rage, and protecting your own spirit without needing to explain. And every time I walk away from what no longer feels like love, I leave lighter than before, like setting down invisible stones. Oh, the soul grows tired carrying what was never hers to hold, and healing sometimes sounds like nothing, just a quieter pulse unfolding slow. And silence became my strength. I stopped searching for redemption inside the hands of people who could never hold me gently. And all the tears I used to hide turned softer in the fading light. No longer desperate to be heard, just finally at peace inside. Oh, and silence became my strength. The world grew calmer in my chest. I don't need to win every battle to know my heart survived. I don't need to prove my goodness to deserve a peaceful life. And maybe wisdom isn't louder, maybe grace arrives this way, like moonlight on still water, quiet enough to stay. When silence became my strength, I found freedom in surrender. Not giving up on myself, but giving up the need to suffer endlessly. Now every breath feels slower, every step feels myself against reflections, against strangers, against impossible versions of beauty. Until one quiet morning, I looked at myself differently. I used to stand beside the mirror, searching for what I should change, comparing every little detail until I barely knew my face. I thought beauty meant perfection, smooth edges, flawless light. Never too emotional, never too soft, never too alive. And every compliment felt temporary, every silence felt like proof that I would only matter if I became somebody new. Oh, but the soul grows tired, living underneath comparison. And somewhere deep inside me, a gentler truth was waking up. Maybe I'm a different kind of beautiful, not made to shine the way they do. Maybe my softness is not weakness, maybe my heart is something rare too. And every scar I carry softly, every tear I've lived through, it shapes a kind of beauty no mirror could fully hold. Oh, I'm learning how to love a different kind of beautiful. Now I notice little things, the warmth inside my tired eyes, the way compassion lives within me, even after difficult nights. I see beauty in my honesty, in surviving without becoming cold, and still believing in tenderness after all the storms I've known. And maybe the most beautiful people are not the ones who never break, but the ones who stay gentle even after heartbreak. Oh, I no longer wanna disappear inside impossible ideals. I just wanna feel at home inside the person I already am. Maybe I'm a different kind of beautiful, not loud enough for every room, but steady like the morning sunlight, quietly warming what it touches. And every imperfect part of me deserves tenderness too, because beauty is not something earned by becoming less human. Oh, I'm finally starting to see a different kind of beautiful in me. It's been too long chasing approval from eyes that never truly saw me. Now I wanna stand beside myself with the same grace I give everybody. And maybe beauty is not performance, maybe it's peace inside your skin. Maybe it's learning to stay soft in a world that hardens everything. I am a different kind of beautiful, not because I became someone new, but because I stopped abandoning myself to fit somebody else's truth. Now every flaw feels less like failure, every scar feels less severe, and the girl inside the mirror looks more like home each year. Oh, I'm learning how to love this different kind of beautiful. to deserve the light. Spend years trying to hide the shattered parts of me. Like broken things could never become beautiful, like pain could never belong beside joy. But slowly the pieces began speaking to each other. Inside my smile, old regrets beneath the surface that I carried mile by mile. There were nights I thought I'd never find a way beyond the ache. Every wound another language I was terrified to translate. But somewhere through the unraveling, through every storm I survived. The shattered parts kept breathing quietly, keeping me alive. Oh, maybe nothing was wasted, not the tears, not the fear. Maybe every fractured moment was leading gently here. And all the broken pieces sang together, every sorrow found its harmony. Every scar became part of the music that carried me back to me. What once felt ruined beyond repair now glows like gold inside the cracks. And every painful chapter became the reason I could finally heal at last. Oh, all the broken pieces sang together. Now the mirror feels much kinder. Now the nights don't feel so long. I can hear strength in my breathing. I can hear softness in my songs. Even the memories that hurt me no longer pull me underneath. They move like distant thunder, far beyond the reach of me. And maybe healing is not erasing everything that once went wrong. Maybe it's learning all the fragments still belonged all along. Oh, the soul was never asking to become untouched by pain, only to survive long enough to see meaning take its shape. And all the broken pieces sang together like a choir rising through the dark. Every lonely little fragment still carried light inside its heart. And now the tears I used to fear feel sacred somehow in hindsight, because every shattered part of me helped build this softer life. All the broken pieces finally sang together. I thought healing meant perfection, a clean beginning without scars. But beauty came through restoration, not by forgetting who we are. And every storm that nearly broke me left wisdom underneath the pain. Now I stand inside the aftermath and hear the music in the rain. Now the broken pieces sing together, louder than the grief they came from. Every wound transformed After surviving endless nights, oh, all the broken pieces, all the broken pieces sang together. Nothing was wasted, not a single tear. Every broken piece helped bring me here. I used to think strength had to arrive like thunder, something undeniable, something impossible to ignore. But the strongest parts of me never needed to shout. There were storms I walked through quietly, without anyone knowing my name. Whole oceans inside my chest, held together through the pain. I learned how to carry heartbreak without letting bitterness grow. Learned how to survive the coldest nights and still remain soft below. And though the world celebrates noise, the loudest voice, the brightest spark, there was something steady burning silently inside the dark. Oh, resilience doesn't always look like battle cries and flames. Sometimes it's just waking up again after everything changed. The fire never has to be loud, it only has to stay alive somehow. Through every storm, through every doubt, still glowing softly underground. And maybe strength was never meant to prove itself to everyone. Maybe the bravest hearts survive by quietly becoming sunlight. Oh, the fire inside me, Lord, it never needed to burn louder, to burn true. Now I move with gentler footsteps, no longer desperate to be seen. There is peace inside my breathing that younger versions couldn't reach. I stopped mistaking quietness for weakness or retreat, because some souls carry mountains without making a sound beneath. And every scar I carry now feels less like damage, more like proof that tenderness can still survive even after painful truths. Oh, the strongest roots go deepest far beneath the surface ground, and the truest forms of courage rarely make the loudest sound. The fire never has to be loud, never needed applause from the crowd. It only needed room enough to keep the darkness from going out. And every tear I lived through slowly fed the warmth I carry now, turning fragile into steady, turning fear into calm somehow. The fire inside my soul was always enough on its own. I am no just wanna remain kind, no matter what the world takes. And maybe that's the deepest strength, to stay gentle through the pain, to hold your softness carefully and still rise again and again. Fire never has to be loud, still it survived the darkest clouds, still it warmed the frozen spaces, still it carried me somehow. Now I see myself more clearly, not as weak for feeling deeply, but as someone who kept glowing, even when no one could see. Oh, the fire inside my chest never needed to roar to become my strength. Some flames do not rise loudly, they simply refuse to disappear. Peace would feel dramatic, like a sudden ending to every ache, like waking up untouched by the past. But peace arrived differently, quieter than I imagined. Coffee cooling by the window light, no fear rushing through my heartbeat, no war waiting inside my mind. It came when I stopped forcing every wound to disappear, when I finally let my sadness sit beside me without fear. And all the nights I once survived through no longer felt like open doors to endless storms returning like they had before. Oh, healing didn't erase me, it softened how I stayed, and slowly I began to recognize the calmness taking shape. I learned the shape of peace, it felt like breathing easily, like silence no longer frightening me, like warmth returning quietly. And every shattered part of me stopped asking to be somebody new. I finally let my soul exist without apologizing for the truth. Oh, I learned the shape of peace, and somehow it looked a little like me. Now the mirror feels less distant, now my thoughts move slower too. I no longer chase perfection through impossible things to prove. There's comfort in the stillness now, and evenings washed with golden rain, and knowing I can hold my memories without reliving all the pain. And maybe peace is not forgetting what the heart has journeyed through. Maybe it's learning every scar still belongs inside of you. Oh, I used to think acceptance meant surrendering my dreams, back to me. There is no grand arrival, no perfect ending to become, just a quieter kind of living where the soul no longer runs. And maybe this is what healing means, not spotless, not untouched by grief, but finally feeling safe enough to rest inside your own belief. And in the shape of peace, it lives in every breath I keep, in softer nights and open hands, and knowing I am enough as I am. And though the storms once changed me deeply, they no longer own my sky, because now there's something steadier glowing softly inside. Oh, I learned the shape of peace, and at last I could stay there. Not every victory is loud. Some arrive quietly and decide to. For years I thought I was too sensitive, too emotional, too difficult to love correctly. I kept trying to reshape my soul into something easier for the world to hold, until one day I realized I spent so much time apologizing for the way my feelings ran deep, for needing warmth and reassurance, for the tears I couldn't keep. I thought healing meant becoming colder, less vulnerable, less alive, like softness was a flaw to outgrow, instead of something human inside. And every heartbreak left me wondering what was broken underneath my skin, why love felt easy for others but so heavy within me. Oh, but maybe the pain came not because my heart was wrong, but because I kept giving it away to places it did not belong. Nothing about my heart was wrong, nothing about the way I loved. The world just taught me to believe softness needed fixing, but every ache I carried gently only proved how deeply I could feel. And every scar became a mirror showing me my heart was real. Oh, nothing about my heart was wrong. It was worthy all along. Now I look at my reflection with kinder eyes than years before. I no longer call myself too much for wanting honesty and more. There is courage and compassion, there is strength inside restraint, and loving deeply was never weakness, even when it ended in pain. I still feel things intensely, still cry during certain songs, but now I hold those tender moments like they belong to me all along. Oh, the soul was never standing softly in your truth, without demanding your own heart become less beautiful for others to choose. Nothing about my heart was wrong, not its kindness, not its songs, not the way it kept reaching for light after every painful night. And now I carry myself differently, not as someone needing repair, but as someone finally realizing she was always worthy of care. Oh, nothing about my heart was wrong. And finally, I believe it. I was never too much, I was simply human, and my heart was never the mistake. I spent years searching for something outside myself, a hand to save me, a voice to tell me I was enough. But somewhere in the quiet aftermath, I finally understood. I look for healing in other people, in promises and open doors, in every distant kind of future. Certain peace lives somewhere more. I waited for the sky to change me, for some miracle to arrive, like strength belonged to someone else and not this fragile heart of mine. But every road I wandered through, every sorrow I survived, was quietly teaching me the truth I could not recognize. Oh, I kept asking the world to hand me back my worth, not realizing all along it never truly left. The light I waited for was mine, burning softly all this time, hidden underneath the fear, still alive through every year. And every storm that bent my soul never managed to steal the glow, 'cause somewhere deep beneath the pain, a quiet fire remained. Oh, the light I searched the world to find was already inside. Now the mornings feel much clearer, like the air itself has changed. Not because the world grew easier, but because I finally stayed beside my own reflection, stayed through every trembling truth, stopped abandoning my softness for approval I could never prove. And all the love I gave away still exists inside my chest, not lost, not wasted, just waiting to return as tenderness. So maybe healing was never becoming somebody new, try to wash it away. Was mine, and finally I let it shine. I was never empty, only waiting to see my own light clearly. There was a time I thought the sadness would follow me forever, like darkness had rooted itself inside my bones, like fear would always speak louder than hope. But tonight, something feels different. The room was quiet in a kind of way, not empty, not aching, just still. Moonlight resting on the curtains, soft enough to finally heal. I can hear my own breathing now, without waiting for the panic to begin, without every thought collapsing under the weight I used to live in. And all the shadows that once chased me feel farther than before, like tired waves pulling slowly back from a peaceful shore. Healing didn't arrive loudly, no dramatic ending came. The darkness simply loosened and stopped calling me by my pain. And the darkness finally rested, its cool hand slipping from my chest, no longer turning every silence into something to survive through. And every fear that held me tightly lost its power little by little, like winter slowly giving way to warmer air and gentler days. Oh, the darkness finally rested, and so did I. I still remember all the nights I thought I'd never see beyond, every lonely conversation, every ache I carried home. But now those memories feel softer, like photographs fading in rain. Still part of me, still important, but no longer wrapped in chains. And maybe peace is not forgetting what once nearly broke your soul. Maybe it's learning the heart can stay without controlling where you go. I no longer fear the quiet or the spaces in between, because I finally understand stillness does not mean empty. And the darkness finally rested, like fearing the softness I had always known. And now the night feels less like danger, more like somewhere I can breathe. No longer haunted by my sadness, just quietly accompanied by peace. And the darkness finally rested, no longer pulling at my soul. Every trembling part within me feels steadier, feels whole. And though there will still be moments when shadows visit unexpectedly, I know now they cannot stay forever. Not the way they used to stay with me. Oh, the darkness finally rested, and my heart finally could too. The night is still here, but it no longer frightens me. For the longest time, the future felt like a locked door. Something distant, something meant for stronger people. But little by little, the light began returning, and softly the future opened. Settled on the rooftop, golden through the cooling rain. And for once my thoughts were quiet, not reaching backward into pain. I watched strangers cross the avenue, heard laughter drifting through the air. And suddenly the world felt wider than all the fears I used to wear. There was no dramatic moment, no thunder breaking through the blue, just a small and steady feeling that maybe life could still be beautiful. Hope arrived so gently, I almost didn't recognize it, like sunlight slipping through the curtains after years of keeping them closed. Softly, the future opened, like flowers waking toward the sun, without force, without demanding, just slowly asking me to come. And every dream I thought had faded began breathing quietly again. Not as pressure, not as urgency, but as something warm beneath my skin. Oh, softly the future opened, and I was no longer afraid to look ahead. I still carry old reflections, little echoes of the dark, but they no longer pull me under, they no longer own my heart. Now the unknown feels less frightening, like an ocean calm at dawn, full of places I can grow into, instead of places to get lost. And maybe healing changes everything, not by erasing where you've been, but by teaching you tomorrow doesn't have to hurt again. Oh, I used to hold the future like something sharp inside my hands. Now it feels more like open Not because life lost its storms, but because I finally trust myself to walk through whatever comes. Softly, the future opened bright enough to warm the scars, and all the dreams I buried deeply rise now like quiet stars. I do not need a rush becoming, I do not need to fear the unknown, because hope no longer feels impossible. It finally feels like home. Oh, softly, the future opened, and for the first time I walk toward it willingly. The future did not call loudly, it simply opened and waited for me. I used to search the sky for proof that I belong somewhere, for someone to tell me I was enough to stay. But after all the storms, after all the years of becoming, I finally understand. There were nights I nearly vanished, trying to become what others needed, dimming every fragile color just to feel less complicated. I carried silence like armor, wore heartbreak beneath my skin, thought the world would only love me if I learned how not to feel so deeply again. But every road that hurt my spirit, every shadow, every scar quietly led me back to the truth of who I am. Oh, I no longer need permission to exist the way I do, because healing taught my soul that softness can be powerful too. Now I stand in my own light, not brighter for the world outside, not smaller to be easier to hold, just fully, quietly alive. And every broken piece within me glows gently without shame. No longer asking strangers to decide my worth again. Oh, I finally learned to shine in my own light. Now the mornings feel familiar, like home inside my chest. I no longer chase becoming someone else to earn my rest. There is peace inside my breathing, warmth beneath my every step, and all the love I once searched for still lives softly in myself. The mirror feels less distant now, the future feels less far, because I finally stopped abandoning the girl I truly was. Oh, maybe freedom is the simple, standing gently in your truth, 'cause the quiet fire inside my soul never stopped glowing through the cold. And now I stand in my own light, completely, softly, unafraid. Tonight, no longer hiding from my heart, no longer torn apart by doubt. And every chapter of my story, every tear and every flame, let me hear beneath the sky. Still tender, still alive, still changed. Oh, after everything, I finally became my own light. I do not need the world to define my brightness anymore. I am already close.